One city pays its firefighters in IOUs and hope. Another has more condemned buildings than people with full-time jobs. This isn't about crime rates you can Google. This is about the aura of a place, the gut feeling that tells you to lock the doors and keep driving. We're talking about pockets of America where the social contract isn't just frayed. It's been shredded, used as kindling, and the smoke is starting to choke the welcome sign. These are the municipalities that feel less like communities and more like case studies in systemic collapse. Forgotten industrial fossils, sun-bleached policy failures, and towns where the only growth industry is despair. One city is so broke, it tried to sell its own cemetery. Another is so desperate, it officially declared itself a drug user haven. Think you've heard of the worst? You haven't, because the truly feared cities aren't always the loudest. Sometimes they're the quietest, slowly emptying out, until all that's left is the echo of what went wrong and the few who can't afford to leave. Oh! And one city's mayoral election was once decided by a single vote, and a recount found 3 ballots in a ditch. And trust me, you're not ready for what's next. Subscribing might just save your sanity. Before you continue, if you're ready to see the side of America that doesn't make the postcards, make sure you like, subscribe, and share. This journey into America's 10 most hated and feared cities isn't for the faint of heart, and sharing it warns the people you care about. Let's break it down. Number 10, Cairo, Illinois. Cairo is the only city in America where the rivers converge and the hope diverges violently. Sitting at the literal confluence of the Mississippi and Ohio rivers, this was supposed to be a powerhouse, a strategic linchpin. Instead, it became a lesson in what happens when geography blesses you and history curses you in the same breath. Here's the wait what moment. Cairo's population has plummeted from 15,000 to under 1,700. Let that sink in. The violent crime rate per capita is astronomical, but with so few people left, the statistics scream into a void. This is a place where you can buy a historic mansion for the price of a used Honda, but the property taxes will feel like a mortgage on a ghost. The last major grocery store left in 2018. The hospital closed. The school district was dissolved. Cairo isn't dying. It's conducting a long, slow autopsy on itself, and the report reads death by 1,000 policy cuts. The consequences of living here are a daily masterclass in survival logistics. You drive 30 miles for milk. You pray you don't have a medical emergency after dark. Your neighbors aren't just neighbors. They're your lifeline, your watch system, your shared trauma bond. Financially, the crushing low cost of living is a trap, not a blessing. It's the only reason anyone remains, anchors of poverty holding fast in a drained harbor. Emotionally, it's a weight of monumental history, a key Civil War site, a flashpoint of the Civil Rights era, now buried under layers of neglect and a palpable, eerie silence that hangs over grand, empty buildings like fog. And the potholes? Cairo streets aren't roads, they're archaeological digs. You can trace the city's decline through the strata of patch job asphalt over brick. Hit one, and you're not just damaging your axle, you're unearthing a decade of deferred despair. A local once wrote online, Cairo isn't a city, it's a ruin with a zip code. We're not residents. We're caretakers of a museum nobody visits. And if you think Cairo is a monument to passive decay, the next city on our list of America's 10 most hated and feared cities actively chose oblivion. Number 9, Centralia, Pennsylvania. Centralia is a town that's been on fire for over 60 years. Literally, an underground coal mine fire ignited in 1962 and never stopped burning. The ground smokes. Toxic fumes seep from cracks in the earth. Roads buckle from the heat below. What's left is a dystopian parkland where a handful of holdouts reside amidst the gravestones of their own streets. The population? Officially, 5, maybe 7. The government condemned the town, seized most properties through eminent domain, and literally erased it from a map. The violent crime rate is 0, because there's no one to crime against. The fear here isn't of other people. It's of the planet itself turning against you. It's the fear of the ground you stand on being fundamentally unstable, poisonous, and eternal. Living here, for the few who remain, is an act of profound, stubborn defiance. It's a life off the grid by necessity, where utility services are a memory and your biggest worry is the invisible, odorless carbon monoxide that could seep into your basement on a bad wind day. Financially, their homes are worthless to anyone but them. Emotionally, it's a mix of supreme independence and profound isolation. They are curators of the apocalypse, mowing lawns that lead to nowhere, past sidewalks that end in grassy voids where their neighbor's house once stood. The consequences are a total severance from the systems the rest of us rely on. There is no city services. There's only you, the creeping fire, and the silent, empty highway that used to be Main Street. Reddit poetry from a visitor. Centralia is where you go to see what the end of the world looks like in slow motion. It's quiet, green, and absolutely terrifying. It smells like someone left Hell's pilot light on. And if you think a town on fire is as weird as it gets, the next entry in America's 10 most hated and feared cities is a place where the police department was such a menace, the citizens had to abolish it to survive. Number 8, Moberly, Missouri. Moberly is a kind of mid-sized Midwestern town that looks perfect from the interstate. A water tower, some trees, a few fast food signs. Get off the exit and the picture curdles. This city earned a special kind of infamy when a state audit revealed a police department so corrupt, so predatory, that was functioning as a state-sanctioned gang. Cops were allegedly fabricating charges, conducting illegal stops, and running a modern-day protection racket. The fallout? A culture of terror, where calling the police wasn't a solution. It was an escalation. The crime stats are bad. Violent crime nearly double the national average. But the real story is the institutionalized fear. When the people sworn to protect you are the ones you're most afraid of, the city isn't just dangerous. It's psychologically toxic. What's it like to live under that shadow? You don't just scan for criminals. You scan for cops. A traffic stop isn't an inconvenience. It's a potential life-altering crisis. Trust evaporates. Community dissolves. You raise your kids to be invisibly compliant, not confidently safe. Financially, the town is strangled by lawsuit settlements and a tax base fleeing the chaos. The low rent, maybe $650 for an apartment, is a honey in a very poisonous trap. Emotionally, it's a constant low-grade paranoia. The consequences are a breakdown in the most fundamental layer of civil society, the belief that authority exists to serve you. Moberly is a case study in how a town can become hated and feared not from a lack of law, but from its grotesque, weaponized application. A local's online summary was chillingly simple. In Moberly, the blue lights in your rear view don't mean pull over. They mean good luck. And let's talk about the roads here. They're not just bad. They feel intentional. Like the potholes are part of the revenue scheme. You'll swerve to avoid a crater the size of a kiddie pool and immediately pass a police cruiser hiding behind a billboard for bankruptcy lawyers. The irony is so thick, you could pave the streets with it. If you thought Moberly's corruption was a localized infection, wait until you see the next city on our list of America's 10 most hated and feared cities, where the entire municipal model is bankruptcy as a business plan. Number 7, Prichard, Alabama. Prichard is the city that files for bankruptcy, like it's renewing a library card. It's done it multiple times. This is a place where the pension fund for retired city workers evaporated, just gone, leaving elderly former police officers and firefighters destitute. The city government's answer? A shrub buried in legalese. What's really going on is a total systemic failure wrapped in deep South humidity. Violent crime is more than triple the national average. The median household income is a soul-crushing $24,000. Abandoned houses aren't just eyesores. They're ecosystems of blight. And the city's response has been so inept, so chronically corrupt, that the state of Alabama has repeatedly had to step in just to keep basic water flowing and trash, occasionally getting picked up. Living in Prichard means accepting that the structures meant to support you are made of sand. You pay taxes for services that may or may not exist. You hope your garbage gets collected this week. You pray a city worker doesn't accidentally shut off your water while trying to fix a leak 3 streets over. The financial consequence is that your biggest asset, your home, is an anchor of depreciating value. The emotional consequence is a deep-seated resentment, a feeling of being gaslit by your own zip code. You're told you live in a functioning city, but your eyes show you a staged collapse. A Reddit resident put it bluntly, Pritchard isn't a city. It's a non-profit organization dedicated to the study of failure, and we're the unpaid lab rats. And the infrastructure? If Cairo's roads are an archaeological dig, Pritchard's are an active landslide. The streets weave and buckle like they're trying to shake you off. Sewage backups are a seasonal event. The city doesn't need urban planners. It needs exorcists. It's the kind of place where you see a road work ahead sign and actually laugh, because you haven't seen a road crew since Bush was president. The first one. Pritchard makes you wonder, at what point does a city simply become ungovernable? And if you think Pritchard's financial hell is unique, the next stop on our tour of America's 10 most hated and feared cities is a place where the poverty is so deep, it has its own haunting, quiet beauty. Number 6, Beattyville, Kentucky. Nestled in the Appalachian foothills, Beattyville is heartbreakingly beautiful and statistically one of the poorest places in the United States. The fear here isn't drive-bys or gangs. It's a silence of emptiness, of an economic depression that never lifted. The median household income dances around $18,000. Opioid addiction is an epidemic here. It's the environment. The violent crime rate is high relative to its tiny population, but it's often crime of despair, domestic violence, theft, altercations born of hollowed-out futures. The town's claim to fame? For a few years, it was ranked the poorest white town in America, a title that brought a fleeting spotlight of pity and then deeper resentment. To live in Beattyville is to grapple with a specific kind of dread, the dread of inevitability. You see the same family names in the obituaries, often overdose-related, that you saw in your high school yearbook. Job opportunities are a cruel joke, a dollar store, a fast food outlet, maybe a distant warehouse if you have a car that runs. The financial consequence is a cycle of debt to payday lenders and title loan shops that operate like vultures on a timeline. The emotional consequence is a thick, communal grief, often self-medicated. Yet, within that, there's a fierce, tangled pride and a sense of place so strong it feels like roots growing through your feet. Leaving feels like a betrayal. Staying feels like a sentence. In Beattyville, one online comment reads, "The American dream didn't fade. It packed up and left a forwarding address nobody can afford the postage to write to." The landscape itself is a character. Those stunning, misty hills aren't a postcard. They're walls. They isolated this place, protected a culture, and then sealed in the despair when the cold jobs left. Driving through, you'll see breathtaking vistas overlooking trailers with tarps on the roof. It's a contradiction that sits in your gut. This isn't urban decay. It's rural unraveling. And if you think the despair of Appalachia is a slow burn, the next city in America's 10 most hated and feared cities is a pressure cooker of racial tension, political fury, and literal physical poison. Number 5, Flint, Michigan. Flint is the city America poisoned. Forget the crime stats for a second. Though they're dire, violent crime multiple times the national average. The primary, all-consuming fear in Flint is foundational. It's the fear of the water that comes from your own tap. The state-appointed emergency manager, to save money, switched the water source of the corrosive Flint River in 2014, unleashing lead Legionella, and a public health catastrophe that is still ongoing. The crime, the poverty, median income, $30,000, the hollowed-out auto industry, all of that was bad before. The water crisis was a final, unforgivable betrayal. It made every level of government an object of legitimate terror. It made home a toxic site. Living in Flint means your relationship with the most basic element of life is broken. You bathe with caution. You drink only from bottled water you haul home. A ritual of survival. You look at your children and wonder what invisible damage has been done. The financial consequence is a total destruction of property value. Who buys a house in Flint? The emotional consequence is a collective, simmering rage mixed with a devastating exhaustion. This city fought General Motors. It fought recessions. Now it has to fight its own government for clean water. The resilience is staggering, but so is the trauma. A Flint resident's online testimony captures it. We aren't a crime-ridden city. We are a population of 80,000 people conducting a decade-long science experiment on institutional neglect. The crime is a symptom. The poison was the diagnosis. And the infrastructure? The water pipes are just the start. The roads are shattered from years of heavy trucks and zero investment. Abandoned houses number in the thousands. It feels like a city in hospice, except the patients are furious and fighting for their lives. Flint's story is the ultimate warning. When you render a city literally uninhabitable from the inside out, you create a fear deeper than any crime wave. But if you think Flint betrayal is singular, wait for the next entry in America's 10 most hated and feared cities, a place where the danger is so ambient, it's baked into the desert soil. Number 4, Nogales, Arizona, U.S. side. Nogales is a city cleaved in two by an international border fence. The U.S. side lives in the constant low-frequency vibration of the drug war, human smuggling, and transnational violence that occasionally spills over or is perceived to. The crime stats are weird. Property crime is high, violent crime is spiky, and often tied to cartel activity. But the real product here is fear, a political, cultural, and very personal fear. It's the fear of being caught in crossfire, a mistaken identity, of a border that is less a line and more a wound. The Border Patrol is omnipresent. Their green and white trucks a constant reminder of the tension. The economy is stunted, caught between legitimate cross-border commerce and the shadow economy that dwarfs it. To live in Nogales is to live in a state of perpetual hyper-awareness. You hear helicopters at night. You know which hillsides are used as lookouts. The financial consequence is a strangled local economy. Who opens a thriving boutique when the national narrative paints your home as a war zone? Tourism is deader than the rattlesnakes on the highway. Emotionally, it's a form of siege mentality, even among those who love their bicultural home. There's pride in the community, but it's armored. The consequences are a life lived in the glare of a national political spotlight that uses you as a prop, but never sees you. Living in Nogales, a commenter wrote, is like being a set dressing for a political ad you never agreed to be in. We're either the front line of American sovereignty or a lawless zone, depending on the election cycle. We're just people trying to get groceries. The landscape is starkly beautiful and brutally honest, dusty, rugged, unforgiving. The violence here isn't random, it's targeted, which is almost more frightening because it's logical in its own cruel way. It's a calculus of territory and profit, and civilians are the background static. If you think Nogales is a unique pressure cooker of geopolitics and crime, the next city on our list of America's 10 most hated and feared cities is a masterclass in how to ruin paradise with pure, unadulterated greed and neglect. Number 3, San Bernardino, California. San Bernardino is a city that proves sunshine can be a lie. Bankrupt twice in a decade, it's a sprawling testament to failed promises in the inland empire. The violent crime rate is more than double the national average. Gangs are entrenched. Poverty is rampant. But the unique flavor of fear here is the fear of sheer, overwhelming dysfunction. This is a city that had to outsource its own city attorney because it couldn't afford one. Police response times are legendarily slow for nonviolent calls. The homeless crisis is apocalyptic, with encampments that are full-blown shantytowns stretching for blocks. It's a city-size foreclosure sign. Living in San Bernardino means rationing your expectations of civic life. You report a broken streetlight, knowing it might take years to fix. You see shiny new warehouses go up on the outskirts offering low-wage jobs, while the historic downtown crumbles. The financial consequence is a California paradox. Rents are still painfully high, $1,400 plus for an apartment, because it's cheaper than L.A., trapping working-class families in a place that offers them little but struggle. Emotionally, it's a sun-bleached frustration. The potential is maddeningly visible. The mountains are right there. The freeway access is excellent. But it's all squandered in a quagmire of corruption, poor leadership, and social decay. A local's Reddit lament. San Bernardino is where dreams go to get a flat tire in 110-degree heat. You have just enough service to call for help, but you already know nobody's coming. And the traffic. The freeways are a parking lot of existential dread. The surface streets are a gauntlet of potholes. Sudden lane merges onto dirt shoulders, and pedestrians materializing from behind overgrown lots. Its urban planning is a cry for help. The city feels less like a community and more like a storage facility for people who can't afford to live anywhere else in Southern California. And if you think San Bernardino municipal collapse is as bad as it gets, The penultimate city in America's 10 most hated and feared cities is in a league of its own, a place where the fear is so normalized. It's in the tap water and the political DNA.
Number 2. St. Louis, Missouri, the city proper. We must be specific. The independent city of St. Louis, not the metro area. For years, it has vied for, and often held, the title of murder capital of America per capita. The violent crime rate isn't just high, it's a gravitational force that bends life around it. But the fear here is multifaceted. It's the fear of random, predatory violence in neighborhoods that are otherwise quiet. It's the fear of a police department so distrusted that clearance rates for homicides are abysmal. It's the fear born of stunning racial and economic segregation. Drive a few blocks and the world changes from manicured parks to bombed-out blocks. The city is a patchwork of vibrant revitalization and utter war zone, sometimes separated by a single street. Living in much of the city of St. Louis requires a security calculus. You don't just avoid bad neighborhoods, you learn the safe routes through them. Carjackings are a common threat. The St. Louis stop at red lights after dark is a real thing. Financially, it's another tale of two cities, soaring rents in the trendy Central West End and worthless property values in vast swaths of the North Side. Emotionally, it breeds a unique civic dissonance. There's immense pride in the history, the architecture, the cardinals, but it's undercut by a pervasive anxiety. The consequences are a drained population. It's lost more residents than any other U.S. city since 1950, a crippled tax base, and a reputation so toxic it strangles growth. St. Louis is beautiful and terrifying in the same glance, an online comment captures. You can be admiring a gorgeous Victorian gingerbread house and hear gunshots that aren't fireworks. You get good at telling the difference. The infrastructure mirrors the divide. Smooth, brick-paved streets in the renovated districts and apocalyptic, car-eating crevasses in the neglected ones. It's a city that knows exactly what's wrong with it but seems politically incapable of fixing it, locked in a decades-old stalemate. And if you think St. Louis's entrenched violence is the peak of urban fear, our number 1 city in America's 10 most hated and feared cities combines every single theme: corruption, ecological disaster, economic hollowing, and a deep, psychic resignation into one perfect storm of dread. Number 1. Chester, Pennsylvania. Chester doesn't just top this list. It feels like the prototype. A small city outside Philadelphia, it is a masterclass in total systemic failure. Its violent crime rate has consistently been among the very highest in the nation per capita for years. But crime is just the most visible symptom. This is a city where a state-appointed receiver controlled its finances for decades, where the school district is so broken and violent it made national news, where one of the nation's largest trash incinerators pumps pollution into the air of a predominantly Black, poor community, leading to catastrophic asthma rates, where the waterfront is a toxic Superfund site. Fear in Chester isn't an event, it's the atmosphere. It's the fear of the air, the fear of the schools, the fear of the streets, the fear of a government that has never worked for you. Living in Chester is to understand the word abandonment in your bones. You are surrounded by the physical remnants of industry that left, taking everything but its pollution. Job opportunities are scarce and grim. The financial consequence is a poverty trap of epic proportions, median household income around $32,000 in a high-cost region. Emotionally, it's a grinding, generational hopelessness punctuated by bursts of horrific violence. The community is resilient, with grassroots activists fighting tirelessly, but they are battling against currents of neglect that feel oceanic. The consequences are a human population treated as collateral damage for decades of bad policy and environmental racism. A Chester resident's powerful online statement: "We aren't a city. We're a sacrifice zone." They set up the incinerator here because they knew we couldn't stop them. They underfund the schools because they know our kids aren't the future. We live in the place America built to contain its failure. The landscape is a visceral punch. Beautiful old stone churches from a prosperous past, literally crumbling next to weeded lots filled with trash. The Delaware River is right there, but you can't access it for a park. It's all industrial fencing and no trespassing signs. Chester is the culmination. It has the corruption of Moberly, the financial hell of Pritchard, the poisoned trust of Flint, and the violent desperation of East St. Louis, all compressed into 5 square miles. It is, tragically, the perfect answer to the question, what does a city become when every system built to sustain it instead extracts from it until nothing is left but fear and a fighting spirit? Chester is the most hated and feared not because it's the most violent in raw numbers, but because its story is the most complete indictment. It is the ghost of industrial America, haunting the present, a living reminder that some places aren't just left behind, they are actively consumed. Like this video, so the next time someone talks about bad neighborhoods, you can point to the systemic engines that create them. Subscribe now, because understanding America's 10 most hated and feared cities isn't about morbid tourism. It's about recognizing the fractures in the foundation before the whole structure starts to shake.